Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Hammer Territory podcast. This is episode 408. My name is Brad Rowland, and I'm coming to you on a Sunday afternoon/evening, joined by Scott Coleman. And Scott, we're back to the land where the Braves never won on Sundays. They lost 4 in a row on Sundays, although today's game got a little bit interesting at the end. How's it going, man? We were going to record a while ago, and then we couldn't.
Hello, Brad. Sunday's game in a lot of ways was very much an encapsulation of the last few weeks for this baseball team. And to the Braves' credit, they got close. I mean, they just moments ago lost 10-9. You were willing to take off your pants if they would have come all the way back to complete the comeback. You said you would do the show bottomless if they would have come all the way back. Unfortunately, they were just one swing shy. But, sure, the fact they made it interesting on Sunday, the offense did come to life late. And then, of course, the offense was great on Saturday, and they even hit for some power on Friday. So there are some encouraging things here, even if they sadly continue their losing ways on Sundays.
That's right. And in a moment, we're going to talk about everything that transpired this weekend, plus all-star selections, and look ahead to Monday. This is the very rare situation where the Braves are finishing a series on Monday. Usually we're wrapping up series on Sunday nights. Not today. We'll get into all of that and more. But first, let's mix it up, engineered by our friends at Fastenal. All right, Scott, there was a lot happening this weekend that we'll talk about in more detail later on. But, going back a few days, the Braves were entering this weekend against the Mets, coming off another series loss to the Cardinals. They had this disaster game on Thursday. They didn't score for 8 innings, and it was not a lot of fun. As frustrating as today was, the Braves still lead the series 2-1 against the Mets. The offense has done what it was supposed to do. And in fact, they've scored, if you factor in, I have to change this on the fly in my head because they scored so many runs in the 9th inning today. They have scored 28 runs in the last 3 games. Hard to be too upset about that particular aspect. But broadly speaking, where's your head out now compared to the last time you and I talked only a few days ago about this team?
Yeah, I think it's really encouraging that, Ozzy Albies has been hitting, Matt Olson has come to life, Michael Harris has been swinging the bat well. There's been small signs of life from like Austin Riley, who's had some good at-bats. He finally broke his homerless streak on Saturday night. Drake Baldwin seems to be kind of getting his groove back. He, of course, hit the opposite field grand slam on Sunday and seems like he is slowly but surely getting there. But at the same time, there's just so many just black holes in this lineup right now. Shortstop, DH, it doesn't seem like we're going to get Acuna back until after the All-Star game. I think in some ways the problems with this team have been magnified even more. Even though they've taken 2 out of 3 against the Mets, that's a good sign. Hopefully they can take that third game on Monday and take 3 out of 4, which is something they really have not done in more than a month. But yeah, I feel okay. I think for my money, over this final week of the quote-unquote first half, just keep your head above water, get to the All-Star break, you get Acuna back, you can hopefully make a couple of deals before the deadline, and then, try to hit the accelerator again. But I don't know if anybody has warm and fuzzies in Braves country, even though they did win a couple of games this weekend.
No, warm and fuzzy is not the emotion that I think anybody is having. That's totally fair. I will just say, they are 3-2 in the last 5 as we're talking. They could have won today pretty easily if not for some, Carlos Carrasco will come up later in the podcast. That'd be a lot of talking point, I think, heading into Monday. I think they're playing better. Some of the issues are still persistent. The rotation, the questions even got louder today, given Martin Perez had to leave the game. That's not going away anytime soon. I can tell you that with some certainty. But they at least righted the ship a bit. The offense has showed some signs of life, Thursday notwithstanding. So I feel a little bit better than if you asked me when you and I last talked how I was feeling. That's relative, though. I'm not saying the problems are solved. They are not. But they have at least been able to pick up some victories, and they do have a pretty good chance, I would say, on paper to get a series win on Monday evening. So that's kind of the lay of the land. As we're talking, I think the Phillies are about to lose, or they maybe just did. They were losing. Yeah, they lost. So the division lead's still 3. I know it's early to be talking about that every single day, which is why we're not doing that every day. But hey, they didn't lose ground over the last few days. They actually gained a half game over the last 3 days or so. there's stuff to find if you want to find it. If you want to go optimistic, you can find it. Pessimistic, there's plenty on that front as well. And we'll probably talk about that later on in the podcast. But that's kind of my broad feeling here on the weekend of July 4th as we're talking.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. And, we'll get into Martin Perez. It feels like that story is probably coming to an end. Of course, we have to hope that he is okay, that he took a nasty comebacker to his forearm, and we haven't gotten any kind of update. So we will update
Mhm.
that in real time if we learn more. If not, folks may have seen or heard an update by the time they listen and watch the show. But yeah, I mean, there's still the concerns. Sure, everyone feels better when you put up 14 runs on Saturday night. Everyone feels better when you take a couple games from the Mets. But this rotation is in shambles and is kind of being held together by duct tape and scotch glue at this point. The lineup, which we talked about, has a couple of guys hitting, but really the bottom third is just a black hole. And the bullpen, as good as it has been, without Robert Suarez and with the heavy usage that some of the big dogs have had the last week or so, even the bullpen feels a little flimsy right now with the way they've had to shuttle guys in and out just to have fresh arms. So there's still concerns, and hopefully whoever the Phillies are playing this week, maybe they'll do us a big solid and take a couple games from Philadelphia. Maybe the Braves can take a couple games against they play the Mets Monday, and then I believe the Pirates and Cardinals. So, an opportunity this week against two solid but not spectacular teams to hopefully go into the break on a higher note and then just try to catch your breath and then restart everything for the second half.
For sure. And we're talking intentionally broadly early on here in the podcast, but we're a week, as you and I were talking, from the end of the quote unquote first half, which is not really the first half, but the All-Star break arrives in a week. We're about a month from the trade deadline. In fact, our colleagues Stephen and Sean talked to Robert Murray on this podcast feed only a few days ago. Robert does a great job covering the entire landscape of the trade saga. The Braves will, I think we're confident, do something between now and the deadline. What it's going to be, maybe not as fast as everybody wants, maybe not as big as everybody wants. They're going to do something, I think, along the way. So we're getting to an interesting part of the schedule. Even later on in this pod, we'll talk about the All-Star selection. So I don't know. It's July 5th, and I'm glad you timestamped things a little bit because we're probably going to hear something about Martin Perez at some point. And we're talking what? I'm on Mountain Time right now. What time is it, Scott? I have no idea what time it is. My computer's in the wrong spot.
It is
What time is
about
it?
5:30 Eastern time on Sunday.
There we go.
Yeah.
So people know that's what we know right now. And later on, we'll talk more about what's going on here. All right, Scott. Before we move on, I want to shout out our friends at Fastenal because Fastenal, they have industry supplies, innovative solutions. If you want to learn more, visit fastenal.com.
Hey, SeatGeek is MLB's official ticket marketplace. And in addition to finding every single game on the MLB calendar, there are big events coming up very soon.
There's an all-star game. There's a home run derby. And if you think you're perfect and you can pick the right seat at the home run derby to get the most home run balls, you can get the little green dot, and that might be your lucky seat. Don't go red dot, though, because you might not get any balls. But go green dot, and get as many home run balls as you think you can catch.
Yep. You click the seat, you check out what your view is. Each ticket's rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. And that's what AJ's talking about. Green good, red bad, with those dots. And the code for you, Territory10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any MLB tickets with promo code Territory10. Make sure you click the link in the description of this episode. That'll help you download the app and get the code automatically added to your account so that you can use it later. Thank you to SeatGeek.
All right, Scott. Remember when we talked, I don't know, 1 minute ago about how we might learn something about Martin Perez? Well, during the break, we learned something about Martin Perez. So that's why we do this, folks. I'll let you deliver the news that was relayed by Walt Weiss to the media on Sunday about Martin.
Yeah, so I mean it's good news. So nothing on the x-ray. The x-ray came back negative on Martin Perez, which is good because I was a little worried that like a bone might have chipped or something. If folks missed it, 92-mile-an-hour comebacker off the bat of Juan Soto got him flush on the forearm. However, I guess the bad news from Walt Weiss is that Martin Perez will likely go on the injured list. Let's talk about Martin Perez for a minute. The guy was a godsend for this team for about a month and a half. He was really the one and only constant not named Chris Sale for a large chunk of this season. However, I think the the run of Martin Perez being reliable is basically over. He's had 3 bad starts in a row. He got hammered today by the Mets in the early innings. It was a miracle he only gave up 1 run in the first, and then in the second inning, the wheels kind of fell off, and the Mets kicked the door down and scored 5 very early. And even then, Perez did do a decent job of settling down from there. But I think, to me, look, not every player is a 6-month player. Over the course of a long season, sometimes guys are good for a couple of weeks, or a month, or 2 months. Martin Perez, Dominic Smith, Jorge Mateo, all of those guys kind of fit that mold, but that does not mean that you need to tether yourself to them for the remainder of the season. And, hopefully when Martin comes back off the injured list in a few weeks, he'll be at least somewhat effective. But, I tweeted it in real time today. If he didn't right the ship, and he did right the ship a little bit, but if he didn't get back on track, I think his roster spot's in jeopardy, because he's the type of pitcher, when things go bad, they're going to go bad very quickly.
Yeah, I think that's not crazy. I'm sure people will react a little bit to that about like how good he's been and like, wait, how big his roster spot been? And I understand what you're saying too. Like the underlying data was never as good as the actual performance was looking. I think they would have, if we talked about this actually, you and I during the game, I think he would have maybe gotten another start or two and after this, if not for the injury, but it was not looking good. You mentioned he got 9 outs in a row. Like, it's funny. He literally retired 2 of the first 11 batters today. It was about as ugly as it gets. Now, to be fair, there was some BABIP stuff, like lots of soft flares to the outfield. Like, it wasn't like he was getting absolutely shelled by every single person, but it wasn't like he was pitching at a super high level. So he kind of righted the ship, gets drilled in the forearm, and when he left, he has allowed 11 runs in the last 13 and a third innings over 3 starts. That's an ERA of 8 or so. That's was probably always going to be happening at some point. I would love to know what their plan will be. We'll talk about that probably later on, because like Perez, for all of his potential faults, like was taking the ball every 5th day without fail. And now the Braves are down to having one guy that they rely on, which they kind of already had one guy, but we joke plenty about Martin Perez, number 2 starter. But really, maybe Ronaldo Lopez will build on what he did in his last outing and look good again on Monday. That would be so helpful for everybody involved. But until we see that, currently there's one starter on the Braves roster that everyone has any confidence in. His name is Chris Sale. So we'll find out. Let's just talk about Sunday's game while we're here, because Martin, the news came down. So let's just spend some time on this, what became a 10-9 loss. It was 5-3 for a long time in this game, Scott. And then I'm sure a lot of people honestly turned the game off. It's a holiday weekend. 5-3, it becomes 10-3 in a hurry, and then it's like, all right, this is probably over. If you and I weren't podcasting, would I have watched every pitch of the 9th inning? Maybe not, to be honest with you. But Martin Perez leaves the game. They're down. The Mets didn't score for 6 innings, so Perez gets beat up early. He rights the ship. Bullpen comes in, does a fine job. Mets didn't score for 6+ innings. Then Carlos Carrasco implodes in the 9th. And I'll just say this first, because I know what I've already seen it on Twitter. It's like, if Carlos Carrasco didn't do that, the Braves would have won, like definitively. Could they have won? Would they have had a better chance to win? Yes. I do think that the Mets would not have gone to their like worst reliever if it wasn't 10-3 in the 9th, which is part of the story there. But with that said, Carrasco was very bad. He got lit up pretty good in the 9th inning. And there is just a worthy discussion to be had about Walt Weiss, I would describe as pulling a Brian Snitker and using his worst reliever in a game that was not over. The Braves were down by 5 in the 9th inning. That would be time to go to Carlos Carrasco. And like you said already once on the podcast, and you're right, the bullpen has been taxed. They've been taxed. Suarez is out. I don't hate using Carrasco down 2 in this game. I didn't think it was like totally egregious beyond the pale, but it does look a lot worse when the lead balloons and then you come back at the same time. It was like engineered in the lab for people to be mad at Walt Weiss after that game.
Yeah. I think with Carlos Carrasco, you have to take the club out of the bag. Like if you're a golfer and you have that club and you're like, you know what, I bet I can get to the green with this club. Let me take it out, and then you miss it by 40 feet, right? Like, Walt doesn't have a ton of bullpen options right now, the way that he's had to use them. Now, I would argue Carlos Carrasco should be nowhere near this roster. I don't I genuinely don't know what Alex Anthopoulos and the front office are doing, cycling this guy back. It's like the 9th time now he's been on the roster. And every time he goes in the game, something bad generally happens. Um, I don't know, man. I mean, part of it was J.R. Ritchie had to cover 3 innings on Saturday night, so they needed another fresh arm. But you know what? Like, you got to figure some things out here, and it's just frustrating because I think you made a good point. I don't think we would have seen Brazoban if the Braves were only up or only down by 2. They would have gone to Devin Williams right away. But at the same time, I don't know what else. What else do we need to see from Carlos Carrasco? Call up quite literally anyone else from Gwinnett to just be an option for Walt. So I get it. I get why he went to Carrasco today, but he also should not even have the option to go to Carrasco.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to say out loud. Carrasco is the cycling is kind of funny. He's like speed running the Jesse Chavez thing essentially, except for without all the goodwill that Jesse had built up over years of being good with the Braves. The only argument to have Carrasco would be basically to have a long man in the bullpen, and he's not necessarily being used that way. Like that's the other thing that's kind of curious about this is like, hey, having your last guy in the bullpen be your I need to throw 4 innings guy is totally reasonable, but that's not where the Braves were today with Carrasco. So I don't know. It's in a vacuum, not as bad as at least I don't think it was as bad as it might seem now. But yeah, nobody's gonna be happy with Carlos Carrasco. I think it's very likely he's DFA'd before the game tomorrow, based on the pattern that they've been doing. They've been basically just DFAing him every time he pitches, and then they bring him back the next time. The question more is like, do they bring him back again? I think we would vote no on that, but we'll see.
Yeah, and with Martin Perez going on the IL, they could bring J.R. Ritchie back. So that's one move, almost certainly, because there's the injury exemption. So JR does not have to wait in the minor leagues. So almost certainly Ritchie will be back to help out in the bullpen. Maybe he gets a spot start. I don't know. We're going to see. With Carrasco, candidly, I mean, who could they call up? I mean, no, if he's not injured, they're just going to DFA the guy. So it's going to be tough to see, who's coming up. There's not an abundance of arms in Gwinnett right now. So we'll see there. But regardless, it's just a bad situation all the way around. And, I think the bullpen, when everything is right and they're healthy and they're not being used heavily, is an elite bullpen. Iglesias, Suarez, Lee, Fuentes, like those dudes are awesome. And even like Dylan Dodd, I thought Karinchak threw the ball pretty well. They sent him down the other day. I think Karinchak is good enough to be like the 6th or 7th man in a bullpen. But it's also like, weirdly, they seemingly never have a full strength bullpen, which is a difficult proposition for the team to manage, for Walt Weiss to manage, and you're also trying to win games and you want to be aggressive. So who knows what would have happened today if they don't go to Carrasco in the 2-run lead in the 9th. You could have gone with Iglesias to try to protect it. But then if you use Iglesias again and then you need him tomorrow and he's a little tired because he's thrown 3 out of the last 4 or 5 days, then you're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. So I don't know what the answer is, to be honest.
And that's part of why I wasn't enraged by what Walt did. Is like, is this the best thing to win the game today? Clearly not. But also, like, it wasn't as bad as it seems to be now. I don't know. I get it, but the best thing, as you said, and we'll echo one more time, is to just take the club out of the bag, and hopefully that'll happen between now and tomorrow. As funny as this is, we talked about the offense being way better recently. Today was interesting because the first inning they scored 3 runs on 3 hits. Take the lead in the first inning. Then they didn't score a run for 7 innings. It was really quiet for a long time. They were down 5-3 forever, it seemed like, in this game. And then when the game is functionally over, like everyone's assuming it's over, it's 10-3, they score 6 runs on 7 hits in the 9th. And it looked good. Even against Devin Williams, who's a really good reliever, they got some stuff off Devin Williams. Like, it started out against the Mets, probably worst reliever, which is part of this, but good at bats the entire way through, productive, some extra base hits, all the stuff along the way. And then you get to Dom Smith up with, it's crazy this is this close. Just worth taking a step back and saying the Braves being within a single or a wild pitch from tying or taking the lead in this game is outrageous from what happened in the 9th inning. But Dom strikes out with guys on 2nd and 3rd. If it's a single, they probably win the game right there. Just tough. Obviously, Dom is a topic in itself, his cool off, but I don't hate seeing the offense come alive a little bit. That's the whole weekend. It's been in waves for sure. I'm not arguing about that. We'll talk about the wins later on with all the homers, and this is an offense that has been built to hit home runs. They haven't hit any for a long time, but I was encouraged by the ninth inning rally, even though they didn't finish it off.
For sure. And encouraging that Drake Baldwin hit that opposite field grand slam. We know how important he is, and hopefully that's just another sign that he is on his way to being back. It's just an elite hitter at the top of the lineup.
Yeah, he needed it badly too. I mean, he's obviously there's been some signs last couple of days, but before that, it was really bad for like a month. Well, maybe not a month, like 3 weeks. I don't know, but good to see Drake being Drake again, which is all that matters.
Absolutely. And a note here, Dom Smith, credit to you for pulling this stat. Dom Smith, through May 21st, had an 861 OPS. Was an incredible story. Seemingly every other night, Dom was coming up with a big hit. Since then, since May 21st, so a month and a half, he's hitting 191 with a 499 OPS as your DH. That's not even, it's not a shortstop who's like otherworldly defensively, but you're not going to get much. Like the Nick Allen. I mean, that's pretty close to like what Nick Allen was doing last year. And Dom is your primary DH right now. And the problem is there's nobody else. Like there's no one else to replace Dom Smith, which is a challenge. Obviously, the Braves are going to need probably 2 hitters at the deadline. One of them should be a primary DH. I mean, realistically, they need 5 hitters at the deadline, but I don't think.
Yeah, I'm laughing. I'm laughing because the Braves keep signing 40-year-olds. They signed Carlos Santana. They signed Andrew McCutchen over the weekend. By the way, we're not even talking about that because it may not matter, but we did discuss Kutch in the offseason as a potential like reasonable cheap target. That was before he was bad this year and lost his job. So like I think it's probably over for him. But it just goes to show that look, Alex, they know that Dom is not the guy right now. It's not shocking. We did talk about Dom's likely cool off happening at some point. The only reason why it wasn't like almost assured, like for instance, Jorge Mateo has never hit anywhere he's ever been. So people being surprised that he is cooled off, like, come on, guys, he's never hit anywhere. Dom at least has shown over a couple of seasons that he's been able to hit well, and he's not that old. So like it was more conceivable that he might be able to keep it going. That obviously has not happened. So maybe it'll be McCutchen in a couple of days. I have no idea what's going to happen, but it's just we all know they need more hitting, not a secret. But the regression of Dom has been part of that. And look, I feel bad like singling him out. Obviously, it was the biggest plate appearance of the game, but they had to score. They'd already scored 6 runs in the inning. Like, sorry, Dom. You get to be the GOAT today, even though you should have never had a chance to do that. So I don't know. It is what it is.
Yeah, very clearly left-handed DH, right-handed outfielder. And then I think this lineup would be about as in good of shape as it can be. Of course, there's still questions with some of the guys, the incumbents who are not going anywhere, but add a couple of hitters on both sides of the plate in the next month. And I think this lineup, assuming Acuna gets back, assuming Baldwin finds his form, assuming Harris and Albies and Olsen continue to hit, assuming Austin Riley gives you even just a slight something as he did this weekend. I think this lineup overall is going to be okay once they get healthier and some reinforcements. But yeah, I mean, in some ways, that 9th inning was kind of an encapsulation of the spot right now where Dom Smith is the only left-handed option you have to take that at bat, and it was over in 5 pitches.
Yes, it was. Unfortunately, would have been a very different tone and tenor to this podcast. We would have been kind of going nuts, I think, at the beginning of the podcast if they had won that game after that comeback. Instead, they will settle for a 1-1 loss on a Sunday afternoon. All right, Scott, in a second, we'll speed run through the couple of wins and big-time offensive power situations from Friday and Saturday, plus all-star stuff and more, and it's coming up after a word from our partners on today's show.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball fans, the MLB season is in full swing, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to call your shot with daily dingers. Joining the action is easy. Just make your free pick on who's hitting a home run in their game, and if you're right, you'll get a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. It's just another reason why FanDuel is the home of home runs. So, are you ready to play your game? Head over to FanDuel.com/podcast to get started. That's FanDuel.com/podcast to opt in for daily dingers. Make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball. Swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. No purchase necessary. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, at the risk of glossing over them entirely, because these games matter. These results matter. So we'll talk about Friday and Saturday. The Braves got a badly needed win on Friday, 5-3 in the opener against the Mets. They hit 4 home runs. That's the headliner on Friday. They hit 4 home runs. In the previous 10 games combined, they had 4 home runs. Dingers, Scott. It's the theme of this podcast. Our friends at FanDuel, dingers, dingers, dingers. And that was that was literally the whole story on Friday. They hit 4 home runs. End of game.
It's not some great coincidence that the offense came to life as soon as they started hitting home runs again. And the way this team is constructed, they don't have a ton of on base, they don't have a ton of speed, but they do have at least the potential to hit a lot of homers. And that's why they were so good early in the year, because they were hitting the ball over the fence. It was great to see this eruption on Friday and Saturday night. I mean, I think in the month of June, they had 18 home runs the entire month, and they halved that on Friday and Saturday night alone. It was just such a sight for sore eyes. Good to see the ball flying, and that's very much going to be the key for this offense trying to get back on track. They have to hit homers if they're going to be successful.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about it too, but people kind of noticed this, like in 2023, famously, the Braves had the offense that was historic, and the pitching kind of fell apart that year. It just didn't matter because they just scored so many runs, they hit so many home runs, and this offense is not going to be that offense, I don't think. But that ship has probably sailed, but it covers up a lot, man. You hit home runs, you can kind of can slug your way through some games and get some wins that maybe you shouldn't have gotten. They had 5 hits total on Friday, and 4 were home runs, and they won the game. So pretty simple. The other thing from Grant Holmes was very solid. 5 innings, 2 runs, 1 earned. Only struck out 2, but actually only had 1 walk, which I'm encouraged by with Grant always. Not that he blew anybody away, but nice to see him just give them a chance to win. And that was all they had to have. And honestly, even more pressure is probably the wrong word on Grant now with Martin Perez on the IL. Grant's not going anywhere. He's going to start he's going to start every 5th day. We'll see.
I was going to say the idea of Grant Holmes in the bullpen with Martin Perez heading to the IL is now gone. Now, maybe in a month, if you acquire a starting pitcher or 2, you could send Grant to the bullpen where I think he's going to be an actual weapon. But yeah, Friday night he did fine job. Just like Ronaldo Lopez has done a fine job, Hurston Waldrop has done a fine enough job in his limited work. We're not asking for 7 scoreless, but if you can just keep this team in the ball game and work 4 or 5 or 6 innings would be a godsend for this team right now, and give the bats a chance and give the ball to the bullpen with a lead or even a close score. It is going to work more times than not. I was encouraged by Grant Holmes. And, one quick note, and our friend of the show, Brandon Gaudin, tweeted this out if folks maybe missed it, but just an unbelievably cool moment with the whole Braves crowd singing Country Roads, and then Matt launched a homer in the 8th inning. It was just such a cool moment. Brandon had a great call as well and just kind of let the crowd tell the story. So that was really cool. I wanted to make note of that. Just, full sellout crowd. Braves were winning for the first time in forever, and Matt had a really good game. So just wanted to note, as everybody was singing Country Roads, they have their, soccer fever has reignited that song and its popularity across all of America right now. But a cool moment to be sure.
Yeah, that was fun. Brandon had a lot of fun with it too, and got to call it excitedly, and yeah, fun one to be sure. Look, Saturday was a lot of fun, like kind of a nice feeling that we haven't had for a while. Just an absolute domination, breezy 14-3 win. I think I want you to deliver the stats of the last time the Braves scored this many runs and won by this many runs. It's been a long time.
This was 4th of July. All right. The last time the Braves scored double-digit runs was May 28th in Boston. So 5.5 weeks, give or take. And it was also the first time that the Braves won by 5 or more runs since May 29th. So back-to-back games in Boston and then Cincinnati. Last time they scored 10 or more runs. Last time they won a baseball game by 5 or more runs. That's, man, it was just nice. It was almost surreal. Like, we have not had many of these baseball games lately. It was nice. Everybody kind of got to breathe. Chris Sale did his job. Dylan Lee had a couple of big outs, and then J.R. Ritchie brought him home. But it was just nice to see the bats really awaken and hit 5 home runs. Was just such a sight for sore eyes.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like just a fantasy land when you hit 9 home runs in 2 days. It just hasn't been like that for a long time.
Yeah.
Eli White also broke it open with a huge double that was aided by the Mets. We'll
Yeah,
say
double.
aided.
How is that not an error? I know they don't call
I don't
errors
know.
ever, but whatever.
It doesn't matter. I mean, shots to Eli White. I think Steven, maybe it was you. Somebody was like, Eli White only homers when it's patriotic. Like it's like Eli also he of course had the great game in Bristol, and he's always had he has a knack for these moments for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So shouts to Eli on that. And look, Riley homering for the first time since May 20th. I'll take it. He had 2 hits today. I don't think he's fixed, but I will take it. Is all I'll say.
Yes,
Just
we will absolutely take it. I mean,
stack some things. Stack
yes.
some positives from Austin Riley. I'll probably be the last person that declares Austin Riley back. I'm gonna have to see it for a long time.
Yeah.
But hey, good weekend.
Longest homerless drought of Austin Riley's career. Last time he homered May 20th, so a month and a half ago. That's wild, but good to see. He hit the ball well on Sunday as well. Had a couple of hits, as you mentioned. So yes, we will take the wins with Austin Riley wherever we can get them. And yeah, I think everybody in Braves country has their guard up with Austin. But man, if he could give this team something over the summer, it would it would solve so many questions with this lineup. If Austin can get even close to the guy that he used to be, obviously that's a lot easier said than done.
It is, but worthy of discussion at this point in time. Pitching side, it's easier when you win by 11, but they did a good job overall. Chris Sale got some support for the first time in about a month, which was good to see. He gave up 2 homers in the middle of the game. I'm not worried about Chris Sale in the slightest. He finishes off his, at this point, he has a 2.27 ERA and a sub 3 FIP. Okay, Chris Sale's really good. And then, look, I think I wasn't quite even calculating this. What Dylan Lee did was very important. I know it didn't look like it. They won this game by 1 million runs, but Dylan Lee had a sneaky, crucial outing on Saturday to kind of keep things where they were.
I think you can argue Dylan Lee was the MVP of Saturday night, which is impressive considering they scored 14 runs. But just to quickly set the stage, Chris Sale had kind of hit a wall, and I do think the Mets deserve some credit for getting to Sale. They were putting together some ridiculous at-bats. They were holding off on swinging at pitches like an inch off the plate, and Sale was just missing. The umpire was not calling it. So Dylan Lee comes in, it's 6-3. All of a sudden, it's kind of interesting, and the tying run comes to the plate. Runners on first and second, no outs. And Dylan Lee, being the phenomenal reliever that he is, coming in after his worst appearance of the year when he got blown up by the Cardinals a few nights prior, comes in, gets 3 consecutive strikeouts on 11 pitches. And just like that, the inning was over. The Braves went on to outscore the Mets 8-0 from that point on. So a giant tip of the cap to Dylan Lee, who probably deserves to be an all-star over the next week as folks drop out. We'll see if Dylan gets in there. It's kind of a non-traditional, he's not a closer. He's not even really an 8th inning guy. But Dylan is absolutely deserving of an all-star nod, and that was about as impressive as it gets.
Dylan Lee is awesome. I feel, we're wrong a lot on the pod. We will always be wrong a lot. There's a lot of things we have to say on the podcast. We were very right about Dylan Lee.
Yeah.
Very right for a long time. Brian Sticker did not use Dylan Lee enough. We yelled about it a lot, and I feel so happy for Dylan Lee too, because he had he wasn't some heralded guy. He's been making the league minimum, and he's just that guy rocks, man.
That is a World Series starting pitcher you're talking about.
I know,
Dylan Lee.
I know, but honestly, for a long time, that was the nugget that people knew about Dylan Lee, is that he started a World Series game. That was kind of what he was known for in a not great way. It's just, but no, that guy's awesome. I hope he makes it. I don't care about the All-Star team very much. I hope he makes it, because he has earned it. He's been incredible.
I hope he makes it, and I hope he doesn't even think about pitching in that game, because I would love to get Dylan Lee 5 days off without having to touch a baseball.
Yeah, I don't want any pitcher to ever pitch in the All-Star game. As someone who looks for, we're covering one team. There is no upside to the team for the pitcher to ever pitch in the All-Star game.
Yeah, I don't want Chris. Yeah, I don't want Chris Sale to touch a ball. I don't want Dylan Lee. I don't want
Chris Sale to not even be there. I want Chris Sale to be on a beach somewhere. I have no desire for Chris Sale to be anywhere near the All-Star game. Anyway, that'll come back later in the podcast. And then also shouts to J.R. Ritchie, who did work the last 3 innings, got a save and a 11-run win. Always love the save rule. Good
Yeah.
stuff. Good stuff.
Hey,
There.
in
But
all seriousness, I mean, credit to JR who came in. The game was, I think, 8-3 when he came in, and when it was like, oh man, okay, they are one, the bullpen is thin tonight, but two, they were really trusting JR to get some outs here. The fact he was able to go 3 innings, he looked good in the process, 4 strikeouts. I think he loaded the bases in the eighth, and things got a little hairy, but he was able to work out of that. I don't know. Maybe he's just someone who is not ready to make starts regularly at the major league level. But if he can be effective out of the bullpen, I think you could certainly take it. And hopefully he's able to learn and grow and build coming out of the bullpen, as we have seen with other guys in this organization.
Scott, there's plenty of news to discuss. We talked about all the games, the last three anyway, previous episodes, Robert Murray come on the podcast. The biggest piece of news is the All-Star starters and reserves being announced on Saturday evening. I'll be the first to say on behalf of myself only, Scott can disagree with this, I don't care about this as much as a lot of people do. But it's notable when for instance, I don't want to have the massive 30-minute argument about who should and shouldn't make it. That's why I'm not interested in that, honestly. But when it gets announced, obviously we'll talk about the guys who made it, maybe should have made it. The Braves have a bunch of representatives, as they should, because as much as the last month plus has been pretty rough, it's still been a good team all season long. The record is what it is. Players are what they are. So what struck you as the most important or notable thing or player to be selected for the Braves?
Good question. I think the fact that Ozzie Albies is a starter for the first time is kind of caught me by surprise, if I'm being honest. But Ozzie's been so good, just a complete bounce back for a guy who had really struggled and had some injuries the last few years. But great for Ozzie Albies to be recognized as a starter. And then also Raisel Iglesias, for the first time in his career, was selected as an all-star. This is his 12th year in the majors, which is kind of crazy because that guy has been so good and so consistent all of these years. But yeah, it was good to see. I mean, at least 5 representatives. Also good to see Drake Baldwin in there, even if he's come on hard times. Drake was just so good the first 2 months of the year before the injury. But yeah, nice to see the Braves well represented in Philadelphia. And I'm sure all of the fellas are going to get a really warm reception from the Philadelphia faithful at the All-Star game next week.
Yeah, that's always a fun thing when that kind of stuff happens. But no, I know there was some consternation about Drake making it, which I understand, but he's still been, for the full season, one of the better catchers in baseball, as funny as that might sound, because he hasn't played a lot. I get that. He missed all that time. I believe he's still, I want to say he's 13th in baseball among catchers in Fangraphs WAR, despite playing less than a lot of the guys ahead of him. He still has a 116 WRC plus for the season. Is he would he have been a crazy snub? Absolutely not. But him being there is not weird, I would say. Matt Olson being there, no brainer. There's the controversy about him versus Freddie. I have no time for that today. No problem. Matt's there. All I care about. Sale is a lock all the way through. If he hadn't made it, it would have been crazy. We talked about Dylan Lee already. Dylan Lee should be there. Michael Harris is their other snub. Michael Harris should be in the All-Star game.
Yeah.
He's been awesome. Michael Harris is on pace for a 5-win season. He's been really, really good. And really, he's been one of the few guys who has not had the downturn over the last 6 weeks as well. So shouts to Mike. Maybe he'll get in because guys pass on it all the time. But I just wanted to note that he is a certainly deserving All-Star.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my take on all Braves in the All-Star game is I wish they were sitting on a beach or sitting on the lake fishing or spending time with their family and their kids and whatever it is, not touching a baseball, not thinking about a baseball, having the ability to kind of reset and just physically and mentally reset for 4 or 5 days. But it would be great if Michael Harris gets the recognition that he deserves. Same for Dylan Lee. Both guys are deserving, and we will, of course, see over the next week or so as guys drop out for a couple of reasons if they get their name called.
Yep, absolutely. Other piece of news that was the biggest one was that Hassan Kim hit the injured list on Saturday with what the Braves are describing as right middle finger inflammation. I don't know if that's real. I gotta be honest with you about that, Scott. Yeah. But maybe it is. I mean, look, inflammation. He probably has something bothering him with his finger. Is that the reason why he's been bad? I would imagine not. But it was time to do something, and they're putting him on the IL. What was Kyle Farmer's back. No one's seen Kyle Farmer in months. I know he's around. I guess there was some funny video of him taking grounders and maybe I guess he's the third catcher now that he's back as well, which is helpful to have. But Ha-Seong Kim, still on the roster, but on the IL.
Yes. So with Kim, there was a lot of discussion on Saturday that obviously once he feels ready to play, and we'll see if it's an actual injury, if he needs to miss some time, or if he just takes a couple of days off and then gets right back to it. But there was a lot of discussion around Kim that this is going to allow him to get a lengthy rehab assignment in Gwinnett. And I think that's basically the last ditch effort to kind of turn not only this season, but like his entire career around. I mean, I know that Kim just got $20 million, but I mean, to be honest, if he doesn't show signs of life in the second half, his career might be over. Like, I don't know if he'd want to go back home and play,
Yeah,
but I mean,
I think he'd probably get like that. I think he'd probably get a minimum offer somewhere,
sure,
but that's a
but
big step
not.
down from 20 million.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
right. Well, and he's 30 years old. So the idea for Kim was to take a 1 year deal and then bet on himself and then go get a 3 or 4 year deal with a good season. Obviously, it's been the exact opposite of it. He's also a competitive guy. I mean, this is his life's work. So you just have to hope. And I don't know if anyone is really holding their breath, but you have to hope that maybe getting down to AAA, getting a breather, a mental, just kind of getting away from the game at the highest level and get 2 to 3 weeks and play every single night, and you're going to see far inferior pitching. You can get your timing down. Maybe you can tinker with your mechanics in the box a little bit and just hope that Kim finds something. Because even though he's been horrible, this guy, we saw him be a contributing member to this team last year. And he's not at some crazy age where he's just going to completely fall off a cliff. I would like to think that Kim has something left in the tank. Maybe he can find it in Gwinnett. If he doesn't find it, if it goes poorly, then maybe the Braves do just cut their losses and say, see you later. But it doesn't hurt. I mean, this is basically the last ditch effort to try to turn his season and career around.
Yeah, it is genuinely remarkable that like he's not 38 years old. Like, and it's been completely off a cliff. And maybe he has been hurt. We just didn't know it. That kind of stuff. I don't know. We'll find out. But a chance to get him a more formal reset. And if it doesn't work, that'll probably be the end of him in Atlanta. And if it does work, then hopefully he comes back and helps the team at some point. Before everybody signs off the podcast, and we'll preview the game on Monday in a second. We actually recorded this already, so we're comfortable. Normally, we don't advertise guests coming on the show until they are recorded because we know what happened. We have our old friend, Carlos Collazo, our old co-host from back way, way, way in the day, coming on the show. Probably tomorrow is when we'll release it on Monday. Let's talk about the system and, of course, the 2026 draft because as we record this, the draft is less than 1 week away. Not a huge draft guy, never claimed to be. I think you would agree with me on that, Scott. It's not what we do, but the draft is literally in 6 days as we're talking, and the Braves have a top 10 pick. So
Yes.
we're the discussion, and we have a podcast all about that tomorrow. So please stay tuned and subscribe to that podcast.
Yes, Baseball America's Carlos Collazo, the lead MLB draft writer at BA. Great conversation with Carlos. Also talked about Eric Hartman and Tate Southacene and Cam Caminetti, who are the kind of rising stars in the farm system now. Really good conversation with Carlos. We're going to be dropping that in the next day or two. Be sure to check that out because it's so weird. Baseball's draft has always been weird, but you think about like the NFL draft and there's months of hype and lead up, and the NBA draft just happened and there's months of hype and lead up, and then baseball's draft just kind of happens in the middle of the season. I believe it's next Saturday, so there will be games going on as the Braves make their 2 first-round picks. It's odd. I understand why it is with the way the college and high school seasons go for baseball, but very clearly an incredibly important draft and opportunity for this front office here.
Yeah, it's coming up on Saturday. Again, we'll talk about that more tomorrow with Carlos or Tuesday at the very latest, but flagging that right now. Beyond that, the Braves, as we alluded to earlier, still have to finish the series against the Mets. It might be once a year, if that, where we do a Sunday show and the series is not over, and that's where we are right now. Monday night, Braves-Mets, Ronaldo Lopez against Freddie Peralta. Lopez, as Steven and Sean discussed on an episode a few days ago, had a really good start against the Cardinals that everyone got excited about, and I think rightly so. He looked really good. It was only one start, which is certainly what we'll say, but it was encouraging, and we will see if he follows that up because, man, could the Braves use old Ronald Lopez
Yeah.
tomorrow and beyond? That'd be very helpful.
Well, and you pointed it out on the show last week, but Ronaldo had thrown the ball pretty well in the bullpen, even if it was not like super obvious to everybody, because he's pitched in limited samples and has not thrown a ton of innings out of the bullpen. But, he did a fine job out in San Francisco and then threw the ball really well against the Cardinals. The velocity was up, which is encouraging, and he was getting a decent amount of swing and miss on his breaking pitches. So, yeah, man, we don't need Ronaldo Lopez to be an incredible ace, but we do need him to be a stabilizing presence in the rotation, even if just for a couple of weeks would be huge. And the Mets lineup, it's they have so many big names, but statistically the Mets are near like the bottom of the league in everything that matters on offense. You would like to think that Ronaldo can take advantage. Stay away from Juan Soto, stay away from Francisco Lindor, and just try to give the team 5 or 6 innings would be huge for Walt Weiss. Hopefully the bats can get to Freddie Peralta, who's been a pretty massive disappointment after a big offseason trade for the Mets.
Yeah, we talked about Peralta as a Braves target last winter, as a trade target. Braves, Mets went out and got him, paid a decent price for him, and then also, he was okay early, but his last 5 starts has an ERA over 8. So he's clearly in the wilderness right now. We'll see if that continues on Monday. If the Braves can win, they will win the series. If they lose, they will split the series. So that's a big one for obvious reasons. And, beating the Mets, always fun to beat the Mets whenever you can. After that, real quick, the Braves go to Pittsburgh and then St. Louis for 3 games each in those cities before the All-Star break arrives on Sunday, a week from now. So we'll talk about those games as they happen. But it looks like, is this still true? Like, it might be Paul Skeens in Pittsburgh on
Very
Tuesday?
likely. Yeah, very likely going to see Paul Skeens. I think Mitch Keller is also scheduled to pitch, who's a solid veteran righty. I think they might see Jared Jones as well. So, the Pirates are frisky. They're kind of hanging in there. There's like this glut of teams in the wild card race. The Cardinals are also one of them. So it's not an easy week. And, anecdotally, I don't have the numbers, but it feels like PNC Park in Pittsburgh has been a house of horrors for the Braves the last few years. I think they got swept there either last year or the year before then. It's been a rough park for a team that really hasn't been very good in a long time. So finish the series with the Mets, try to get a win, beat up on Freddie Peralta, who has really had a tough time of it the last couple of starts, and then go to Pittsburgh, go to St. Louis. It would be amazing if you could have even a 4-2 winning trip going into the break. I think everybody would sleep a little better, and then hopefully it's all systems go whenever the second half gets going.
I'm not trying to jinx it, but I will just say Paul Skeens has been extremely human lately.
Yeah.
Like, he's not been all caps Paul Skeens that terrifies everyone, and rightly so. He was maybe the best pitcher in the world for about a year and a half, along with Tarek Skubal, basically 1 and 2. He's not quite been that good recently, so maybe that'll continue on Tuesday. It'd be very helpful if it did.
I was going to say, nothing that the Braves lineup most days can help you
of
out
course.
With the way they've gone.
Yeah, that's I'm sure I'll get accused of jinxing it. That's fine. I'm just giving you the stats. He's been very, very normal and not even very good actually in the last month, which is odd.
Sounds like
it's never happened to him before.
It sounds like it's time for the Pittsburgh Pirates to trade Paul Skeens to the Braves. The Braves will absorb all the risk and take that on, and we'll give them J.R. Ritchie and a couple of 18-year-olds. How about that? How's that sound?
That sounds like a reasonable price to me for Paul Skeens. As we're signing off, our friend Mark Bowman just tweeted that the stitching of the baseball is still on Martin Perez's forearm from when he was hit with the ball today.
Oh, damn. That's
kind of wild.
Ouch. Yeah.
They're still hoping no fracture, as we talked about earlier in the podcast. X-ray showed no fracture, but that's not what you want to see. Hopefully Martin's okay. That's all.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, obviously we want the guy to be healthy. He's been a great story, and even if the last few starts have not gone well, we obviously want Martin to be back. Maybe he could be in the bullpen. We'll see where he's at and how long he's going to miss. It sounds like almost certainly he's going on the IL. But yeah, that's man. Yeah. I mean, not that Juan Soto wouldn't. Soto's regarded as a good guy, but even Soto went to check on Perez after he got hit by the comebacker because that was, I mean, again, 92 miles an hour straight to the forearm. That would hurt.
I don't want that to happen to me, or you, or anybody else. So
yeah.
One more time, we have a show coming soon with Carlos Collazo, Baseball America, and also we have ourselves. The 4 of us will be talking about the Braves throughout the week. So please go ahead and subscribe to Hammer Territory anywhere you find your podcasts. We are also engineered by Fastenal. We are also part of the Foul Territory network of podcasts, and we appreciate everyone for listening and or watching the podcast all the time. I know it's been kind of a weird stretch for the Braves the last 5-6 weeks, but we are thankful for the folks keeping it locked in with us all the time, and let's keep it going. All-Star break's coming, deadline's coming. Very busy month on the horizon, Scott.
Yes, let's hope some wins on the horizon and then get close. And there'll be trade time. I think once we get past the All-Star game and past the draft, I think right now front offices are so focused in on the draft. But once we get past the draft and the All-Star game, I think then is like officially trade deadline time. I think, of course, most of those deals are going to happen, August 1st, 2nd, and up until the 3rd on deadline day. But maybe they, even just adding like a hitter. I don't necessarily expect Tarek Skubal to get moved anytime soon, but even if the Braves could just add like one bat during that week where they're off would be really helpful. We'll see. I'm sure there'll be phone calls flying left and right here soon. And let's keep this thing going. Take 2 out of 3 against the Mets this weekend, another one on Monday. As frustrating as June was, they're still in a good enough position, all things considered. Let's just kind of put some space between us and the Phillies and get back to winning some ball games.
Sounds good to me, Scott. That's all we got on today's episode. Again, one more time, please subscribe to the pod, tell your friends, and we'll see you all next time.